The House That Remembers, an original story from the Dread Archive. Jenna sat in her car, staring at the winding gravel path in front of her. Trees on either side twisted together overhead like gnarled fingers, blotting out what little sunlight remained. Her GPS had long since stopped working, but she could see the faint silhouette of the old farmhouse through the trees. She adjusted the strap on her camera bag and took a breath. The house had shown up in a forgotten land deed, buried under generations of probate paperwork. No name attached, just coordinates. Rumor in the local town was that it had been abandoned since the 1960s. No one had lived there, no one had claimed it, and no one had bothered knocking on its door. Until today, Jenna had a fascination with places like this, not just for their decay, but for the way they seemed to remember things. You could feel it in the floorboards, in the faded wallpaper, in the way the air hung heavier than it should. She stepped out of her car and into the damp silence of the woods. The birds had stopped singing. The porch creaked under her weight. Its railing had rotted away in places, and green moss blanketed the wooden planks. She snapped a few photos before nudging the door open. It wasn't locked. The air inside was cold, not just in temperature, but in mood. It smelled faintly of mildew and something older. Not dead exactly, preserved. She stepped carefully, boots leaving clean impressions in the dusty floor. But she noticed something odd. The floor near the doorway was already disturbed. Someone had been here recently. She kneeled. Muddy footprints led from the door to the stairs and disappeared halfway up. She followed them. The stairs groaned loudly, each step a slow protest under her weight. At the top, the hallway was narrow and lined with faded family portraits. The faces were blurred from time, but one photo stopped her cold. A black and white image of a family. A man, a woman, 2 boys. The smaller child had wide-set eyes, deep dimples, and a strange birthmark just above his eyebrow. Jenna had seen that face before, in the mirror. She backed away, bumping into the wall. "I don't know these people," she whispered. "I've never been here." She explored the bedrooms next. Each room was fully furnished, but wrong. Not dusty, not abandoned. Just waiting. Beds were made. Clothes hung in closets. A tray of plastic grapes sat on the dining room table downstairs, perfectly intact. It was like a model home that had never been sold. The kitchen was the only place that looked touched by time. The refrigerator door hung open, revealing rusted racks and mold stains. On the counter, a dusty recipe card lay under a stone paperweight. Potato casserole for Jenna. Her heart stopped. Back upstairs, she approached the final door, the master bedroom. It was closed. Unlike the others, this one had no dust around the handle. It had been opened, and recently. She reached out, hesitated. From inside, she heard it. A whisper. Faint, raspy, human. "You came back." She yanked her hand away. Her vision blurred for a moment, like the hallway twisted. The wallpaper peeled in her peripheral vision, revealing names scratched into the wall underneath. Her name, over and over. She ran. Outside, the daylight was fading fast. She sprinted down the steps and out into the woods. But the path was gone. No gravity, no car, only trees. Hundreds of them, all in the wrong places. She turned in a circle, trying to get her bearings, but it was no use. The house loomed behind her again, but this time, something was different. Smoke was curling from a chimney. She backed away, her breath misted in the cooling air. Rain began to fall, just a drizzle at first, then harder. She could hear it hitting the roof, the trees, the ground, but not her. Not her clothes, not her hair. She was dry. The air was dry. The rain was a sound. She looked up. There were no clouds. Only gray-blue sky, softly humming. And then silence. The rain sound stopped. Something had turned them off. She turned and bolted toward the tree lean. After a few minutes, She broke into a clearing and skidded to a stop. The house again, but not the front. This was the back of the house. Boards nailed haphazardly across windows, a cellar door creaking open in the wind. And standing on the porch was the boy from the photograph. Only older, her age, wearing clothes 20 years out of date. He raised a hand and smiled. "Hi, Jenna," he said softly. She opened her mouth to scream. She woke up in her car. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windshield. The GPS was blinking again. Route available. Had she dreamed it? She looked at her camera bag. It was zipped and heavy on the passenger seat. She opened it. Inside were dozens of photos. All of the house. Every room. Every face. Including one she didn't take. A photo of herself, asleep in the master bedroom. The caption beneath it, handwritten in faded ink. "Welcome home. The house that remembers." An original story from the Dread archive. Jenna sat in her car, staring at the winding gravel path in front of her. Trees on either side twisted together overhead like gnarled fingers, blotting out what little sunlight remained. Her GPS had long since stopped working, but she could see the faint silhouette of the old farmhouse through the trees. She adjusted the strap on her camera bag and took a breath. The house had shown up in a forgotten land deed, buried under generations of probate paperwork. No name attached, just coordinates. Rumor in the local town was that it had been abandoned since the 1960s. No one had lived there, no one had claimed it, and no one had bothered knocking on its door. Until today, Jenna had a fascination with places like this. Not just for their decay, but for the way they seemed to remember things. You could feel it in the floorboards, in the faded wallpaper, in the way the air hung heavier than it should. She stepped out of her car and into the damp silence of the woods. The birds had stopped singing. The porch creaked under her weight. Its railing had rotted away in places, and green moss blanketed the wooden planks. She snapped a few photos before nudging the door open. It wasn't locked. The air inside was cold, not just in temperature, but in mood. It smelled faintly of mildew and something older. Not dead exactly, preserved. She stepped carefully, boots leaving clean impressions in the dusty floor. But she noticed something odd. The floor near the doorway was already disturbed. Someone had been here recently. She kneeled. Muddy footprints led from the door to the stairs and disappeared halfway up. She followed them. The stairs groaned loudly, each step a slow protest under her weight. At the top, the hallway was narrow and lined with faded family portraits. The faces were blurred from time, but one photo stopped her cold. A black and white image of a family. A man, a woman, two boys. The smaller child had wide-set eyes, deep dimples, and a strange birthmark just above his eyebrow. Jenna had seen that face before, in the mirror. She backed away, bumping into the wall. "I don't know these people," she whispered. "I've never been here." She explored the bedrooms next. Each room was fully furnished, but wrong. Not dusty, not abandoned. Just waiting. Beds were made. Clothes hung in closets. A tray of plastic grapes sat on the dining room table downstairs, perfectly intact. It was like a model home that had never been sold. The kitchen was the only place that looked touched by time. The refrigerator door hung open, revealing rusted racks and mold stains. On the counter, a dusty recipe card lay under a stone paperweight. Potato casserole for Jenna. Her heart stopped. Back upstairs, she approached the final door, the master bedroom. It was closed. Unlike the others, this one had no dust around the handle. It had been opened, and recently. She reached out, hesitated. From inside, she heard it. A whisper. Faint, raspy human. "You came back." She yanked her hand away. Her vision blurred for a moment, like the hallway twisted. The wallpaper peeled in her peripheral vision, revealing names scratched into the wall underneath. Her name, over and over. She ran. Outside, The daylight was fading fast. She sprinted down the steps and out into the woods. But the path was gone. No gravel, no car, only trees. Hundreds of them, all in the wrong places. She turned in a circle, trying to get her bearings, but it was no use. The house loomed behind her again, but this time, something was different. Smoke was curling from the chimney. She backed away, her breath misted in the cooling air. Rain began to fall, just a drizzle at first, then harder. She could hear it hitting the roof, the trees, the ground, but not her. Not her clothes, not her hair. She was dry. The air was dry. The rain was a sound. She looked up. There were no clouds, only gray-blue sky, softly humming. And then silence. The rain sound stopped. Something had turned them off. She turned and bolted toward the tree line. After a few minutes, she broke into a clearing and skidded to a stop. The house again, but not the front. This was the back of the house, boards nailed haphazardly across windows, a cellar door creaking open in the wind. And standing on the porch was the boy from the photograph, only older, her age, wearing clothes 20 years out of date. He raised a hand and smiled. "Hi, Jenna," he said softly. She opened her mouth to scream. She woke up in her car. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the windshield. The GPS was blinking again. Route available. Had she dreamed it? She looked at her camera bag. It was zipped and heavy on the passenger seat. She opened it. Inside were dozens of photos. All the house. Every room. Every face. Including one she didn't take. A photo of herself, asleep in the master bedroom. The caption beneath it, handwritten in faded ink. "Welcome home. The Dread Archive. Story 2. The Late Bus." It was 1:12 a.m. when the bus finally pulled up. Colin wasn't even sure why he waited. The online tracker showed no more arrivals. The last official bus on Route 27 had passed nearly 2 hours ago. But the digital sign flickered 27 North Loop, and the doors hissed open like any other. He was too tired to question it. After his double shift, standing for hours behind the counter of a gas station that never seemed to close, he just wanted to sit and sleep through the 30-minute ride home. He didn't notice, at first, that he was the only one getting on. The driver was a woman in a faded uniform, hat too big for her head, eyes hidden behind dark glasses despite the hour. She gave him a stiff nod, didn't ask for fare, just watched as he dropped his card into the slot. The machine didn't beep. No light, no sound, just swallowed the card. Colin turned down the aisle. The bus was dim, only a few overhead lights flickering here and there. He took a seat near the middle. The moment he sat down, the doors shut and the bus pulled away. No one else was on board. The ride was too quiet. The usual rumbles and shakes were muted. No hum of other passengers, no distant radio from the driver's seat. Just the low whine of the engine and the soft hiss of hydraulics. The city outside looked unfamiliar, too empty, too dark. Even the billboards were blank. He tried to check his phone. No signal. No batería indicator. The screen glitched when he touched it. The bus took a sharp left. That wasn't the right way. "Hey," Colin called out, rising from his seat. "You missed the turn. This bus isn't going north." The driver didn't respond, didn't look in the mirror. The road outside turned from pavement to cracked asphalt. Streetlights became trees. Graffiti became vines. "Miss?" He tried again, louder. Nothing. He walked to the front, grabbing a pole to steady himself. "You missed my stop. You've gone off route." Still, the driver said nothing. Colin stepped closer, eyes narrowing. She was whispering to herself. He leaned in. Her lips moved without sound. Her fingers gripped the wheel, so tight her knuckles were white. Behind the glasses, her eyes were wide open, but unmoving, like she was in a trance. "Where are we going?" he demanded. Still nothing. He reached out and touched her shoulder. The bus stopped instantly. Not slowed. Stopped. The lights flickered and went out. In the silence that followed, he heard it, breathing, but not from the driver. From behind him, he turned slowly. There was now a man sitting 4 rows back. Head down, hair slicked wet, hands resting in his lap, unmoving. Colin's breath caught. The man hadn't been there a second ago. "Hey," Colin called. "Do you know what stop this is?" The man didn't reply. Colin took a cautious step down the aisle. Another figure appeared. This time, a woman 2 rows behind the first, wearing a torn dress, her neck tilted at an unnatural angle. Then another, a child, sitting cross-legged in the seat across from her, blinking too slowly. Then another, and another. By the time Colin reached the back of the bus, the seats were full. Every one of them was staring at him. He stumbled forward, trying not to scream. "Driver, you need to let me off." No reply. The bus started moving again, but the windows were no longer showing streets or trees or even the night sky. Just darkness, like they were inside a tunnel. No sound, no light, just endless black. Colin turned back again, and all the passengers were gone. The bus was empty, except for one seat. In the back, occupied, by himself. He stared at it. It was him, slumped just like he'd been. Same jacket, same pants, same bag. Only the skin was pale, the mouth slightly open, and the eyes were missing. 2 hollow sockets where they should have been. He turned to the driver, heart pounding. "Let me off," he shouted. She turned her head slowly, and for the first time, she spoke. "You are off." Colin woke up in the depot. A different driver was shaking him. "Hey kid, you all right? You can't sleep here. This bus is off duty." He sat up, dazed. The bus was empty again, but normal. Clean. No whispering. No darkness. He stumbled out, still shaken. His phone buzzed. One new message. "Thanks for riding the late bus. We'll see you again soon." It was from no number. No sender. And his reflection in the screen? The eyes were missing. The Dread Archive. Story 3. The Reflection Room. The house was a leftover relic from some half-finished resort project. Cold, bare bones, tucked high into the Colorado mountains where snowfall swallowed roads overnight. The real estate company advertised it as a getaway with character. Vanessa didn't care. She just needed somewhere to be alone for a while. Somewhere away. Divorce had left her raw. She wanted silence. Solitude. The place had both. Too much, maybe. The nearest town was 30 minutes down a winding road she couldn't see the end of. Cell signal flickered like a dying candle. The heating groaned when it worked. And the furniture? Just the basics. A bed, a small couch, a cracked TV that buzzed with static even when off. But the strangest thing was the mirror. There was a door at the end of the hall, bolted shut with a rusted padlock. The real estate agent told her to ignore it. Old storage room. Nothing important. But on the second night, Vanessa heard a click. When she checked, the lock was open. Inside, there was only one thing. A full-length mirror mounted to the far wall. The room had no windows, no outlets, no light fixtures, but somehow the mirror glowed. A soft silver hue, like moonlight trapped in glass. She stepped in. Her reflection stepped with her. But something about it fell off. It wasn't obvious at first. Just small things. The reflection blinked a little too late. Its breath fogged slower. One night, as she leaned in to inspect a freckle, she watched her reflection smile. She hadn't. Vanessa slammed the door shut, padlocked it again. But the next morning, the mirror room was open, and her reflection was gone. She called the agency. They brushed it off. "You're the only one with keys, ma'am." She boarded up the room. That night, she heard laughter. Faint, childlike, coming from inside the walls. Vanessa didn't sleep. The next morning, every board she'd nailed up was lying neatly stacked beside the door. The mirror room was wide open. The mirror was glowing stronger now. No longer silver, but deep violet, like bruised glass. And the reflection was back. Only this time, it wasn't her. The face in the glass was similar. Same shape, same hair, but older. Sunken eyes, pale skin. It wore the same clothes, but moved like a puppet underwater. It didn't mimic her movements. It watched. She tried to leave, packed a bag, ran to the car, but it wouldn't start. She hiked half a mile through the snow before turning back. Something was wrong. The sky looked flat. Wrong shades. No bits. No sound. It wasn't until she was back in the house that she realized her reflection was still standing in the mirror, watching her retreat. It smiled again. This time the smile split too wide. That night, she set up her phone and filmed the mirror. Hours passed. Nothing moved. Then, 3:17 a.m., the reflection stepped out of the mirror. It didn't crawl or glitch or vanish. It stepped into the room and walked out of frame. Vanessa woke to an empty house, but the video was still playing. She fast-forwarded. At 4:03 a.m., the camera showed her sleeping in bed, and beside her, something watching from the shadows. She screamed, ran outside. This time the car worked. She didn't even grab her things. 20 minutes down the mountain, signal returned. She called a friend, sobbing. They told her to check into a motel and wait. But when she reached into her bag for ID, it wasn't her license. It was someone else's. Same name, same birth date, but the photo wasn't her. It was the reflection's face. She looked up at the gas station window to make sense of it, and her reflection wasn't there. The mirror behind the counter showed nothing. Vanessa was gone. The Dread Archive. Story 4. The Tunnel Beneath Unit B. When the tenants of Meadow Heights were surveyed about the old underground tunnel system beneath their apartment complex, most responded with a blank stare. It wasn't on any blueprint. Management denied its existence. And yet, when Jordan moved into Unit B, he found a small hatch under the carpet in his closet. It was bolted shut. At first, he ignored it, until the scratching began. It started around 2:14 a.m. sharp, like fingernails dragging against old brick. Sometimes it came with whispers, barely audible. Not words, just breathy syllables that made his spine stiffen. Jordan assumed rats. Maybe a pipe expanding. He was a practical guy. He worked IT support from home, lived alone, kept to himself. But on the 6th night, the whispers called his name, and the bolt was loose. He called the landlord. "Sir, we don't have any underground access," the voice on the phone said. "Maybe you're confusing it with a maintenance crawl space?" Jordan asked about Unit B specifically. The line went silent. Then, click. He didn't sleep that night. The scratching had turned into knocking. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Always at the same time, 2:14 a.m. On the 8th night, he opened the hatch. Inside was a ladder and darkness. He told himself he'd only look. A quick photo for evidence. Maybe blackmail the landlord into a better unit. He climbed down. The air was cold, vet, thick with the smell of rust and mildew. His flashlight revealed a brick tunnel stretching endlessly in both directions. Moss clung to the walls. Pipes jutted from the ceiling like broken ribs. He took one step forward. The hatch slammed shut above him. He ran back, climbed the ladder locked. He shouted, pounded on the hatch, but no one came. He checked his phone. No signal. Battery, 19%. Time, 2:14 a.m. With no choice, he walked forward. The tunnel seemed to shift behind him, subtly changing. When he turned around, the path he just walked looked different. Like the bricks were older, the pipes more rusted. He kept walking. Minutes blurred into hours. He passed doors, metal, dented, some marked with numbers and names he didn't recognize. Room 13A, Dr. Mahler. Room 7C, Vance, Subject 44. Room 9B, J. Marlowe Void. Each had heavy locks and observation windows, all clouded by grime. And then he heard footsteps. Not his own. Something was following. He turned his flashlight back, but nothing was there. He ran, twisting corridors, split paths, water pooling underfoot. Eventually, he found a wooden door. On it was a sign, Unit B, Reclamation Entry. The door creaked open by itself. Inside was a perfect replica of his apartment. Same couch, same rug, same flickering kitchen light. Only older, dust-covered, silent. His TV showed static. His phone rang, but it wasn't his ringtone. The name on the screen, Jordan W. His name. He answered. A voice, identical to his own, whispered, "You're not the original." He dropped the phone. Footsteps echoed behind him. He ran to the hatch in the closet. Open again. The same ladder. He climbed, breathing fast. Back in his real apartment. Morning light streamed through the window. His phone buzzed. Notifications, signal, battery back to full. Relief. Until he heard the knock. 2:14 a.m. He ignored it. But every night it returned. 3 knocks. Then scratching. Then whispers. Then a voice right behind his ear saying, "Return. The original wants his life back." The Dread Archive. Story 5. They whisper in the wheat. The town of Howcroft had one rule. Never walk through the wheat fields after sundown. No signs marked the boundary. No fences. Just the knowledge passed down from parent to child for generations. Most outsiders laughed it off until they didn't come back. Celia didn't believe in ghost stories. She had just moved to Howcroft from a city. Burned out, broken up, and in desperate need of a quiet place to start over. She found an old farmhouse on the edge of the wheat fields. Cheap, secluded, perfect, at least until the whispers began. It started with the wind. Every night around 9 p.m., it picked up, sudden, sharp, unnaturally cold. The tall stalks of wheat would sway violently, even when the trees stood still. She'd hear faint murmurs riding the breeze, like children gossiping behind closed doors, like voices too distant to make out, but too close to ignore. Then came the footprints. She woke one morning to find a trail, small, bare feet, leading from the edge of the field to her porch. No adults, no animals, just tiny human prints like a child had wandered up in the dead of night. And the wheat had been parted like something had crawled through. The sheriff shrugged it off. "Probably raccoons," he said, not meeting her eyes. The neighbors said nothing, only shook their heads. But Celia was curious. So she went into the field. It was broad daylight, birds chirping, sun beaming down. Still, the air inside the wheat felt wrong. Thicker, quieter. Every step she took was muffled. The wheat closed behind her like a curtain. 5 minutes in, she heard it, a dry, scratchy voice. "You're not from here." She turned, no one. She ran out, heart pounding, and behind her, the wheat whispered, "You broke the rule." That night, the wind howled louder than ever. Her windows rattled. The whispers grew bolder, forming words now. "You came in. We saw you. You belong to the field." Celia locked her doors, blocked the windows, slept with the lights on. She dreamed of children with hollow eyes, standing in golden stalks, faces half swallowed by rot. When she woke, her front door was wide open. A small corn husk doll sat on her kitchen table. It had hair made from her own black strands, cut from her brush, and something was laughing under the floorboards. She drove to the library the next morning, dug into local records. Old clippings told of disappearances, always children, always in August, always last seen near the fields. One name repeated, the threshing ones, an old harvest myth, spirits born from a failed crop and a broken pact. They took the disobedient, the disrespectful, those who walked where they shouldn't. The last documented incident was 1973. A family of 4 vanished from a house on the edge of the field, the same house Celia had moved into. That night, she packed her bags, but her car wouldn't start. Her phone flickered, died, and from the wheat came footsteps. Small, fast, multiple, dozens. She backed into the house, locked the door, and heard scratching at every wall. Tiny hands, tiny nails. Then, thump, thump, thump on the roof. She ran into the basement, hid, cried, silence, for hours, until something whispered in her ear, "You'll make a fine harvest." They never found her body, only stalks of wheat growing up through the floorboards of her kitchen. And in the center of the room, a doll. This one had green eyes, just like Celia's. The Dread Archive. Story 6, The Infinite Stream. Elliot loved horror. He watched creepypasta videos on YouTube every night. Rain ambience in the background, lights off, headphones in. It was a ritual, a comfort. But after a while, the stories started to feel the same. He wanted something deeper, something real. That's when he found the stream. It wasn't on YouTube. It was buried in a Reddit thread full of dead links and cryptic usernames. The title was simple: Live, True Horror. No repeats, no filters. Only real. He clicked. It never should have existed. The stream had no views, no chat, no creator info. It began in a dimly lit room. A person sat in a chair, back turned to the camera. Heavy breathing. Boros. No music, no intro, just watching. Elliot thought it was a prank, until the person turned around. It was him. Same hoodie, same headphones, same scar on the eyebrow. He got skateboarding in 9th grade. Elliot sat up, paused, rewound, watched again. No mistake. The person in the stream was a perfect copy. He looked around his room, same layout, same furniture. He stared into the screen. The copy stared back. At first, he thought it was a deep fake, someone messing with him. But every time he moved, the stream reflected it, slightly delayed. The figure mimicked him with a delay of maybe 10 seconds. He waved. The figure waved. But sometimes it didn't match perfectly. Sometimes the delay was too long. And sometimes the figure did things Elliot hadn't done. On the second night, the stream didn't start with him sitting. It started with him sleeping, face down, on his bed, just like he'd been moments before clicking the link. His heart pounded. He opened his webcam. Nothing. Covered it with tape. Still, the stream kept showing him, from angles his own camera couldn't capture. The next night, there was another change. The copy had bruises on its neck. Elliot unplugged his router. The stream stayed live. He reset his computer. It came back. He tried screen recording it to send to a friend. His system crashed. The next day, he went to a repair shop, showed them the link. The tech guy blinked. "Dude, there's no site here. This page doesn't exist." Elliot looked again. The browser was blank. But back home, the stream was still running. And the copy now had bloodshot eyes and whispered when it moved. He stopped watching, didn't touch the computer for days. Tried staying at his friend Mason's place. Told him he needed a break from screens. Everything was fine until he woke up one night at 3:12 a.m. and saw Mason staring at his phone, wide-eyed. "Bro, is this a joke?" He turned the phone toward Elliot. The stream. Still live. Only now the copy was standing. In a dark hallway. Breathing heavily. Holding a knife. Elliot smashed his phone. Packed up. Left town. But the stream followed. Public library computer? Still there. New phone? Installed itself. No matter where he went, it found him. And every night, the copy got closer. First in the doorway. Then next to the bed. Then hovering over the sleeping body. Elliot didn't sleep anymore. Ate barely. Just watched. Then one night, the stream was different. Empty chair. No one there. Until the camera turned by itself and showed Elliot's apartment. Live. But Elliot wasn't home. He rushed back. Lights off. Door IR. He stepped inside, calling out, but no answer. The TV was on. Static. Then the stream resumed, on its own. and the figure was behind him. They found the apartment empty, except for one thing: a live stream playing on loop. It shows a dimly lit room. A person, face obscured, sits at a desk. Sometimes they weep, sometimes they scream, but they never leave. And if you stare long enough, you'll swear they look just like you. Dread Artife. Story 7. The House on Six Pines Road. Most people in Birch Hollow don't remember what used to stand at the end of Six Pines Road. They've driven by the dead-end turnoff 1,000 times. Just a cracked asphalt loop, a chain across the entrance, and a rusted sign that reads "Private Property. Trespassers will be prosecuted." But no one ever prosecutes, because no one owns it anymore. And no one talks about the house that used to be there, except Caleb. And Caleb hasn't spoken a word in 11 years. It started in October. The kind of October where the sky's always bruised purple by 5 p.m. and the trees look like they're bleeding rust. Caleb and his best friend Lucas were out biking after school, cutting through the trails near the edge of town. Their usual shortcut home took them past the fork that led to Six Pines. They almost missed it, overgrown, hidden behind saplings and vine-choked fences. But Lucas noticed something strange that day. There was smoke, just a wisp, barely visible, rising behind the trees at the end of Six Pines. "Someone's out there," he said, slowing down. Caleb squinted. "That place is empty." Lucas shrugged. "Looks like a fire. Maybe someone moved in." Against better judgment, they dropped their bikes and climbed over the chain. The road ended at a clearing. A warped fence circled a crumbling house, old and sun-bleached. Its porch sagged like it was mourning something. Wind chimes dangled from the awning, but they didn't make a sound. The air smelled wrong. Not like wood smoke, more like burned plastic and rotting leaves. The front door stood open. "Let's just peek," Lucas whispered. "If someone lives here, we leave." Caleb hesitated, but his curiosity betrayed him. They stepped inside. The house was abandoned, but not empty. Furniture covered in yellowing sheets. Dust thick on the floor. A broken grandfather clock leaned against the wall like it had given up. Yet something felt recently disturbed. Footprints in the dust. Not theirs. Small, barefoot, leading upstairs. "Maybe someone squatting," Caleb said. Lucas didn't answer. He was staring at the stairs. The footprints were going up, but none were coming down. They crept to the second floor. The hallway was dim, lit only by an oval window at the far end. 5 doors, all closed. Then one creaked open by itself. Lucas flinched. "Dude, did you see?" A child's voice echoed from the room. Soft, fragile. "Help!" Lucas looked at Caleb, pale. "I'm not going in there," he whispered. But Caleb already was. Inside was a nursery. Rotten crib, peeling wallpaper, a rocking horse coated in gray mold. The floorboards groaned underfoot. The room was cold. Not its autumn cold. The hospital basement cold. Caleb knelt by the crib. It was empty, but something was carved into the wall above it. Names. Dozens of them. Scratched deep into the plaster. Some fresh. Some almost faded. All in the same jagged handwriting. He turned to call Lucas. But Lucas wasn't in the doorway anymore. He wasn't in the hall either. Caleb shouted his name, heart thudding like a drum in his ears. Then something answered. Not Lucas. A whisper. Behind him. "Caleb." He turned and saw the crib rocking on its own. He ran. Down the hall. Down the stairs. But every turn twisted into something new. Doors that hadn't been there before. Rooms stretching longer than they should. Hallways looping back on themselves. Then he saw Lucas, standing in the kitchen, staring at something on the counter. It was a Polaroid photo. Caleb walked closer. In the photo were 2 kids, one tall, one short, smiling, on bikes, forest in the background. It was them, from today, but behind them in the trees, a pale face. Watching, Lucas didn't say a word. He just pointed to the back door. Together they ran. Out. Through the woods. Never looking back, the door slammed shut behind them, and the house was gone. Only trees, silent, still, as if it had never been there. Caleb told the police. They searched, found a clearing, but no house, no fence, no foundation, not even a fire pit. Lucas never spoke about it again. He started sleepwalking, then stopped talking entirely. By Christmas, he was gone. One night, he walked out of his house barefoot in the snow. They found his prints leading into the woods, but no prints ever came back. A year later, Caleb returned to Six Pines Road. He doesn't know why. Maybe to find answers. Maybe just to remember. The clearing was still empty. But nailed to a tree was something new. A Polaroid photo. 2 kids on bikes. And behind them, a pale, watching face. Dread Aratife. Story 9. The Bell in the Cellar. When Elsie inherited her grandmother's cottage, she thought it was a blessing. A quaint stone home on the edge of a sleepy village in Dorset. Ivy on the walls, wooden beams, a rose garden that had grown wild but beautiful, and a cellar door she didn't know existed. The cottage had been in the family for 3 generations. Her grandmother, Edith, had lived alone since her husband died in the 70s. Elsie hadn't visited since she was a child. Something about the place made her uneasy even back then. But with no job and nowhere else to go, she decided to move in and make it her own. For the first week, it was peaceful. Morning birds, the distant bark of dogs, the occasional knock from old pipes or creaking floorboards. Charming, she told herself. Atmospheric, until the knocking started at night. It came from beneath the floor. Not loud, not frantic, just a soft, rhythmic tap. Talp, talp, talp. Always at 3:11 a.m. She assumed it was rodents. Or old plumbing, until she found the hidden cellar. It was under the kitchen rug. The trapdoor was small, with an old brass ring and hinges so rusted they screeched when she lifted them. Inside, stone steps, thick dust, the smell of damp earth and something older, mustier. She took a flashlight and descended. The cellar was colder than she expected, and bigger. The beam of her flashlight revealed shelves of old preserves, broken tools, a shattered mirror, and something that made her pause. A bell. It hung from the ceiling in the center of the room. A long, frayed string dangled from its clapper. The bell was made of iron, dark with age, but it hadn't rusted. It looked clean, untouched, like it didn't belong in the rot and mold of the cellar. Elsie tugged the string gently. The bell did not ring. She stared at it, frowning. Why would there be a bell in a cellar? And why was it hung at exactly head height? She took a photo and went back upstairs, chalking it up to some eccentric family tradition. That night, the knocking returned, but now it was louder and faster. Talp, 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 talp. 3:11 nachts. Right beneath her bed, she confronted the cellar the next morning. This time, the bell was gone. The strings still hung from the ceiling, frayed and swinging, but the bell itself was nowhere in sight. She searched the floor, the shelves, even the corners behind old crates. Nothing. Uneasy, she returned upstairs. That night, she dreamed of her grandmother. Edith sat in a wooden chair in the middle of the cellar, dressed in black, pale. She looked at Elsie with eyes that were milk white and said only one thing: "Don't answer when it rings." Elsie woke in sweat, heart pounding. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, she went to the village to ask around. At the bakery, an old man named Arthur overheard her mention the cottage. "You're in Edith Bellamy's place?" He asked, brow furrowed. Poor woman. What? Elsie asked. She wasn't mad, you know, he said quietly. People said she was. Talking about knocking. A bell in the cellar. Voices. But she wasn't. Elsie went cold. She mentioned the bell. He nodded. Said it was put there to warn us. Warn us of what? He hesitated. Something buried. Something that knocks before it speaks. Something that climbs. That night, the bell rang. Once. A hollow, metallic ding from deep below the floorboards. Elsie sat up in bed, frozen. Then it rang again. Twice. Ding. Ding. Each tone echoed up through the wood, like it was vibrating her bones. Then silence. Until 3:11 a.m. Then the knocking began. Not tapping now. Pounding. She covered her ears. In her mind, she heard words. Not spoken aloud. Not sound exactly, but presence. Let me in. I am waiting. I am close. The next morning, she found the cellar door open. The stairs down were darker than before, and the bell was back, swinging slightly. A new message had been scratched into the wall, rough like it was carved by a nail. Every time it rings, something climbs higher. Elsie nailed the cellar shut, boarded the floor, left the cottage that afternoon, and never returned. But the knocking followed her, to the flat she rented in London, to the Airbnb in Wales, even to her car when she slept in it. And sometimes, when the engine is off, when everything is silent, she hears the faintest ding. One ring, then two, then three, and counting. Dread Aratife. Story 10. The lighthouse that watches back. People assume lighthouses are meant to guide ships, that they shine out. But the one on Ashmore Crag, it doesn't warn anything outside. It watches what's trying to get in. In 1997, a young Coast Guard named David Harlow was sent to monitor Ashmore Crag, a rocky islet off the coast of Scotland, notorious for violent tides and sudden storms. No one wanted the job. The lighthouse there had been unmanned since the 1950s after the previous keeper vanished without a trace. It was said to be cursed, or at least haunted. Locals called it the Eye. But David didn't believe in curses, and he needed the pay. He was told it would be a 2-week rotation. Just him, a radio, and a stack of weather logs. The light was now automated. All he had to do was make sure it kept working. Simple, until the light stopped facing the sea. On his third night, David noticed something strange. The beam from the lighthouse had shifted. It wasn't sweeping the ocean anymore. It had turned inward, casting long shadows across the island itself. He checked the controls. Everything was working. Notice, the rotation motor had changed its trajectory on its own. By morning, the beam was fixed on the lighthouse's own base, as if staring at its own shadow. He radioed it in. The response crackled. Up was Siebel. Light can't rotate that way. Check system again. He did. It was fine. That night, he heard the footsteps. Upstairs, inside the tower. Heavy and deliberate, like boots on old metal grates. He stood in the lower corridor, staring up the spiral staircase. No one was there. No boat had landed. He was alone. Still, the footsteps echoed, circling the tower slowly, then stopping right above him. He called out. Silence. Then something whispered in a gravel voice not quite human. You turned your back. He started sleeping with the door locked. Flashlight and flare gun beside the bed. But sleep didn't come easily. Not with the dreams. Dreams of being on the open sea with no stars. Dreams of something tall and thin walking across the water toward the lighthouse. Dreams of hundreds of eyes blinking from beneath the waves. On the 5th day, he climbed the tower during daylight. There were scratch marks along the railing, clumps of seaweed on the steps, and a single wet footprint, larger than his own, leading to the top platform. At sunset, he caught the light moving again, not just rotating, twitching like it was being jerked by an invisible hand. It pulsed toward the rocks, then toward the forest of dead trees at the island center, then toward the door of his quarters. As night fell, the storm rolled in. No radio signal. No visibility. Then the knocking began, not on the door, but on the glass of the tower, all the way at the top. He watched, frozen, as a silhouette leaned in front of the light. Long limbs, no face. Its arms dragged along the windows, then disappeared. The next morning, he packed to leave early. He would call for a boat the moment the storm cleared. He stepped outside and stopped. There were footprints in the mud, leading away from the tower. They weren't his. They were deep, webbed, and glistening with salt. As he followed them, he saw eyes watching from the rocks. Small ones, yellow ones, some human-shaped, others not. He turned back to the tower, only to see the light flicker rapidly, like blinking. He ran inside and locked the door. His log entries grew frantic. Day 7. There's something in the water. Not fish, not mammal. Something wrong. It watches me like I'm trespassing. Day 8. The tower whispers. The glass reflects things I can't see outside. It's trying to show me things that haven't happened yet. Day 9. I saw myself drowning, but I wasn't in the water. Day 10. If the light stops, it will come inside. On the 11th day, the light stopped. Just stopped. No dotashin. No below. The island was swallowed in darkness. He held his breath in the silence. Then a noise, faint but clear, like someone scratching at stone, coming from beneath the tower. He descended slowly. Each step down seemed longer than the last. At the base, he found the source. A panel in the floor, a hatch he hadn't seen before, was open. Inside, stairs that descended deeper than the foundation. And water, still and black. Something rose from it. Tall, thin, vet. Its face was a reflection of his own, but blurred, like looking into a memory. The next crew arrived 2 days later. David Harlow was gone, but the tower light had returned, fully functional, except it no longer pointed toward the sea. It now rotated across the island, slowly, carefully scanning every tree, rock, and path. And some nights, locals swear they see something walking on the water again, always headed toward Ashmer Crag, always when the light flickers,